Welcome to the Equity Blueprint Podcast. My name is Dana Wilson, CEO and founder of CHIP, which stands for Changing How Individuals Prosper. And our goal is to help you find financial professionals who can suit your individual needs. I started this podcast to normalize the conversation around money and wealth and what that really means to our communities and just the evolution of our lives. Money isn't always the sexiest topic or fun topic to talk about, but hey, that's why you're here. To not just learn more, but really kick back, relax, and hear other people's journeys and how they've used money, how they related to generational wealth or wealth building to become their own, what I like to call financial architects of their lives. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the dope conversations that you're about to hear with people that inspire me from all across the world. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Equity Blueprint Podcast. If it's your first time joining in, welcome. Happy to have you here. My name is Dana Wilson, CEO and founder of CHIP. And this podcast is really just to continue to normalize the conversations on how we think about money and wealth and really what that means to us in the evolution of our lives. And I'm really excited about my next guest. I have so much respect for our guest coming up, and she has done so many amazing and incredible things, especially the book that she has just currently written, but I'm going to let her talk about it, even introduce it as she introduces herself. So Tara, welcome to the Equity Blueprint Podcast. Thank you for gracing the stage. I know you have a lot going on in all the right ways, so I'm excited to have you on here. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Dana. It is my honor and privilege to be here.
Yeah.
I love what you're up to. I love this idea of helping us talk about money.
Yeah, absolutely. I really feel like it's just something that is, still super taboo, although there's all these tools and gadgets and 5 million budgeting sheets and all these things that you can download, but we still don't really talk about it. Yeah, especially in a lot of our communities where it's just like, don't ask me about that. Like, don't be all up in my business asking me about my paycheck. Did you contribute to a bill? Then don't ask me about it. So we're still here working on all of that. But I think the more we, have these talks, have these conversations, make it fun, make it normal, we'll get to that place where it's just like everything else that we talk about and dive into. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. No, that's perfect.
Well, please tell everyone a little bit about you and all the amazing things that you have going on.
Well, again, like Dana said, my name is Tara Roberts. I am, I guess the best way to jump into my work is I'm a National Geographic Explorer in residence. And in that capacity, I have spent quite a few years now. It's close to 8 years traveling with, diving with, and telling stories about a group of Black scuba divers who dive for slave shipwrecks around the world. If you want to talk about wealth, just thinking about the transatlantic slave trade, it is the thing in our immediate history that really has created the world that we live in today. It is the thing that has created wealth. It destroyed wealth. It saw the rise of socio-political powers that are still dominating today. It is the foundation of capitalism, really, in our world today. So I'm excited to chop it up.
Yeah, me too. And first of all, I think your job is just the coolest ever. What you do, right, is traveling. I like to call myself a water baby. I love anything that has me centered around any piece of water. And it's so calming and centering. But to be able to travel the world and do it in the way that you're experiencing, especially experiencing it through our culture and that lens of the slave trade and all the reasons why we're, here in a lot of different places. So I definitely want to jump all the way into what you just said, but I'm going to take a quick shift and pause to ask the question that I always ask first, which is, what is your relationship with money? What has been your personal story that has, kind of built this evolution for you at this point in your life?
Yeah. I think my relationship has evolved over time. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. It was just me and my mom. So it's just the two of us. I lived in an apartment for most of my life, 5 rooms. And my mother worked like 3 jobs during most of my life. She was a teacher. She taught at the elementary school level, at the middle school level, and then eventually at the college level. And that's where she retired. But I do remember, things changed, but I remember when I was going off to college and I realized that my mother didn't even make my age in her wages. And she was working for a pretty prestigious organization. So I would say that money was tight for us all the time. I was really always present to what I didn't have. Even though I will say my mother made sure I had all the basics and I had some extras. I remember when we would go to places like Marshalls to look for name brand people or name brand clothing. And I remember in the 6th grade, I think we went to Marshalls and maybe I don't know how much it cost. Maybe it was like $10 or $15, but we got me a pair of white Gloria Vanderbilt jeans. And I love my white Gloria Vanderbilt jeans,
Listen, it's always stuff like that you just do not forget, like that one staple item.
right? I loved it. So my mom tried to give me some extras. I always had enough food to eat. I had clothes on my back, but I knew even from a young age that things were tight. And we rented, like my mother didn't own anything until I graduated from high school. And then eventually she bought a townhome. And that was the first introduction to home ownership. But interestingly enough, and I don't know where I got this, like where it came from inside of me, but I always thought about home ownership. And I was the one as a child that was like, "Mom, this is a waste of your money. Like, you need to buy something." I was really into wealth building, even though I don't know where I got that from. But from a very early age, I felt like owning was better than renting, and particularly with properties, but with all the things. I'm like, let's own the things. So that was my story growing up. And I think I have over the years loosened my grip on that story where everything felt tight, even though I'm still a little cheap about some stuff. Like I will like drive 5 miles to save 5 cents at the gas station. Like I'm just like, wait, no, I'm gonna keep going until I get to the cheap gas. Or like if there is if you have to pay for parking, I don't
Mhm.
know why this is all associated with cars, but if you have to pay for parking, I'm like, oh no, I'm not paying for parking. I'm gonna park on the street and I will walk and I'm not paying. So I am cheap about some things, but then I really spend on others. So it's a balance, but I think I am building more of a conversation around stability, deepening my interest in wealth building. This interest in real estate did translate from a very young age to me owning properties. I think over the past however many years, I have owned like 6 properties that I've bought and sold, and that has felt good and right to me.
Mhm.
But even now, I shy away from the stock market. I don't really understand it enough. I don't really know if I believe in our like 401(c)(3)s. I'm just like, where's that money going? I don't understand.
These
Like
are all great questions right
all these or organizations and corporations that, like I'm pretty conscientious about what I want to support and what I don't. And so I don't know where my money is going. So anyway, I'm trying to build my own comfort level with a stable income and trying to build wealth with it. I'll say, I know I'm talking a lot, but I'll say this one last thing, that when I was in my early 20s, I came across the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. Do you know those books?
Yep, I have it over there. It
Have
was
it over there, okay.
it was one of the first books that I read in my early 20s. I think I was about 21, 22 when I found it. And I had first started working in banking and I discovered it somehow. And yeah, it's a great first book to read.
It is. And it really hammered in my head this notion of passive income. Like the way to wealth is to make sure that you've got money coming in, even if it's not necessarily tons and tons of money, but if it's money coming in and it covers all of your expenses, like that is wealth building. I even invested in, there was a game that came with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was called the Rat Race.
Yep, that was my,
played that
yes. I'm glad, you know what? I appreciate you because I had forgot that I had purchased that thing. And I'm glad to know that it wasn't just me.
It was me too. And you remember
Okay,
that
good.
game was not cheap. That game was
It
like
was not.
$200 or something like that, which back then was
Yes.
like, what? For a game?
Thank you.
But I played that game all the time. And I was like, yes, I'm going to figure out how to not be in the rat race.
Right, as I'm contributing to his passive income. But it was great. It was great. No, that was really, that's really amazing. I grew up with single mother as well. So it's like I know that I feel like we're always watching our parents a lot more than we think we are. And I think it's interesting that although at a lot of moments in life we don't have the language, right? You didn't have necessarily the language of wealth, but you knew the difference between rent and own, and that owning, at least in your mind at that time, was a lot more powerful for whatever reason, right? And just kind of being able to see the power in it, even if you didn't necessarily equate that to wealth building at that particular time. Yeah. But you did over time, right? So it's kind of like you got to that space. And then, dropping the slight flexes on the rental income, because I feel like that's a whole nother, we'll have to have you back for like a part so we can unpack all
I remember back in the day. So I'm in high school and, my mom and I are still living in this apartment complex, and my mother taught at a Black institution. She taught at Spelman College. And I don't know if you know anything about Atlanta, but Spelman College is close to downtown Atlanta. And I remember saying to my mom, I was like, Mom, you should buy something downtown, because then you'd always have somebody that would want to rent it from Spelman or Morehouse or Clark. But my mom, she's also growing in her relationship with money. My mother grew up in rural North Carolina on a farm. And so it's just a different conversation about money, but she could never get with it. And I remember years later, I was like, do you see how much all of this now goes for? Like, you could have been so rich if you had just listened to your teenage child who was trying to tell you what to do.
Listen, all of that. And I feel the same way. And interestingly enough, so my mom is from like the Rougemont, Bahama area of North Carolina, which is deep, all the way out there, just in the woods. So similar to your mom, it was just, all of that. Right. And I feel like it's interesting when your parents grow up a certain way, and then my mother raised me in the city. So I have like just this different view and outlook of everything. And we're, I think, about maybe 2 generations apart. So there's just, all of that thought process, possibly similar to you, where it's like we just thought from a different space versus them were in. I feel like almost in that generation, it was almost more save mode, right? It was everything that you farm, and you had all this organic stuff, and you lived off this. So it's like, why am I doing all of these extra things? Like, I just want to be able to actually see the fruits of my labor type of almost thought process. Versus us, we're just like, well, we see all this stuff over here. Let's just go do. Like, I don't understand. It's right there. Like, literally, there's the house, there's a college. Let's go get it.
Let's do it. Yes.
Let's do it. Go do it. But it's interesting, like the the thought process and how we kind of think about wealth in that movement. So now that, you know, you're kind of at this point in your career, you're doing all these amazing things. You have this, you know, book as well, which we'll dive more into, which also is kind of attached to your passive income, your, you know, ability to generate even more income for yourself. How does you feel like that kind of ties in? And is that something that you always thought about doing, or was it just kind of just timing wise?
The writing of a book?
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, no, that's part of the passive income plan.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like having artistic works that are out in the world that are generating income over time. Absolutely. Um, I have 2 other books out, but they're like small books. They're books that I edited. This is the first book that I actually wrote from cover to cover. And I always wanted to do this. Like I always saw myself having a shelf in the bookstore with all my little books. And ideally, those books would be decent sellers and they would continue to generate income year after year after year. Because I knew, I think I knew at an early age, I probably would not be a stock market girl. And who knows, maybe that might change. But when I started to think about the pathways to building wealth, like doing a book, owning real estate, like those were the sort of pathways that spoke most to me. And for most of my life, I have been a freelancer or I have had grants. Um, I tried to add it up and now I've messed up the years and I don't know the exact number, but I think it's somewhere around like 8 or 9 years over the course of my life that I've actually worked on a job. The rest of that time, I've either worked part-time, I've been a freelancer, I've had grants, I've had fellowships, or I've had my own projects. But right now, as a Nat Geo Explorer in residence, I'm on staff again, and I have a steady paycheck. And there are always these moments when having a steady paycheck and having healthcare, it's like, woohoo, this means all the things. But at the same time, you know, you give up your own independence to some extent when you go this route. And before this, I'm a bit of an entrepreneurial mind. I'm more of a like social entrepreneurial mind. So I started my own magazine. I had my own nonprofit. There are all these things that I just wanted to do myself. And so I would pour all of my all of myself in it because I also thought if you build up a company, you know, that is also a way to build wealth and to have income, especially if you're not necessarily running the company, but you've got shares in it. So I always thought about that. Unfortunately, I think I have more talent as a creative person versus a business person because all the entities that I've started haven't quite turned into that big.
It's okay. It was sometimes it's just the thought and getting it out and figuring out what we like. And sometimes you just have to put it out there. But I also like what you're saying around wealth, right? Because wealth doesn't have to be just this thing, you know, and it doesn't have to be just your 401k, just your investments. It's so wide,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like sometimes, especially within our culture, we're just kind of, you know, forced over here. Either it's like very active consumerism, which we're great at, right? And we have millions and billions of dollars over here because we, you know, that's all we could do at one point. But, you know, then it was just a push to make sure, okay, well, then you just get a job, you graduate college, you get your 401k, and then you just live there.
Yeah.
But there was no real active.
Maybe you buy a house.
Yeah, maybe you put a house in there, you get you a nice car that doesn't make you any money, but you have it. You have it,
Yeah.
right? And then there was no real expansion around everything that you talked about when it came to that real estate or the arts or looking at our wealth from like a larger point of view, right? How are there things that I can put in the world that could tap into more of my creative and I also own and be able to build passive income off of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really, you know, incredible to have that thought and not feel like, oh, I had to be pigeonholed here
Yeah.
in this particular place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now that do you see yourself kind of transitioning back into more of the freelance, or how do you feel like you were able to really budget yourself well during that time period? Because I feel like sometimes that's tough for people when you're building that business, or you're, a lot of people are in gig economy and they're in these different roles where they don't have that steady income. How
Mhm.
was it for you as you were, monitoring your cash flow and things like that?
No, I didn't budget myself well at all. What I did, in both of those instances where I was starting my own thing, I went all in with everything I had. I was like, "This is a great idea. I'm gonna do it. Going for it." With the magazine, I put like then because again, I'm into real estate. So I had a loft in Atlanta, and so first I bought an apartment in New York City, which you will appreciate. I bought it in Brooklyn in the early 2000s when stuff was not expensive at all. As a matter of fact, like we have to have a moment where you actually have to guess how much I paid for my apartment in Brooklyn. This was in the 90s. So take a guess. And I had a 3-bedroom apartment in Prospect Heights. It was like just a few blocks from the Brooklyn Park and from the library.
Hmm. I'm gonna guess, what, like your rent per month?
No, I bought it.
You bought
So
it.
I paid for it.
I'm gonna say maybe like 120.
Um, Less.
Wow.
You want to guess again? I'll give you 3 guesses.
Okay. 65.
Less.
Wow. This is crazy because now we're just like, man, if like the increase, yeah. 27.
Close. I
Wow.
paid $15,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment that was fine. Like it wasn't fancy, but it was
I can
fine
even
in
imagine. I don't even
Brooklyn.
want to know what it costs now. I know it's like
Yeah,
quite,
I looked it up some like maybe 3 years ago and it
yeah,
went for over 1,000,000.
yeah.
But nobody told me to hang on to that. Like I did sell it and I sold it
Mhm.
for a decent chunk of change, which we were
Yeah.
all like, what? Somebody's gonna pay that for this apartment? That
Hmm.
felt like a lot. Now, like that would have been nothing.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I'm used to sort of windfalls and then I go all in. So I took that money and started the magazine thinking, oh my goodness, I'm gonna build a company and it's gonna be amazing. But starting a magazine is an expensive business. And so I ended up having to, and I bought an apartment with that money in Atlanta. And so I ended up putting like 3 mortgages on the apartment to fund the business. I cashed out my 401k because my 401k was small because I'd only worked for just a couple years. And I'm like, oh, who
Hmm.
cares? Let me put this into something that I know I can build into something.
Yeah.
But eventually the magazine went belly up, and so that didn't work. But then fast forward, 8, 9 years later, I do it again with a nonprofit. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best nonprofit idea ever in the world. I have to go all in with it. So I'm going. And so I did the same thing there. And then it also didn't work out. So no, I was not budgeting. I was trying to be a visionary and follow my dreams. And now, like I think it's sort of working out in a different way. Like I'm still
Hmm.
following my dreams or this passion that I had inside. And it has turned into this long-term relationship with National Geographic that I couldn't have planned. And that started with grants that they gave me to start doing the work that I've been doing. And I've gotten a series of grants from them. And now it's turned into full-time employment with them, where they're still wrapping around me to support, another one of my big ideas. But this time I don't have to go broke and belly up. Like I got an organization behind me to help do it this time.
But there's definitely a beauty in that too, because I feel like, as someone who might be watching, there's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because I think in our culture, we're not used to being able to have the freedom to do that. So
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah.
But other cultures do that all of the time, rinse and repeat. And it's insanely normal
Yes.
to put money into your dreams for something not to work out, to do it again and to do it again until you find that thing that
Yes.
sticks. And the thing
Yes.
that sticks
such a good point.
is the thing, right? And it catapults you forward, and all the
Yes.
stuff before it, although it didn't
You know,
necessarily, work out, it gave you the momentum to get to that place. And
maybe some
sometimes,
skills, some learnings, some
yeah,
lessons that I
yeah,
need to
yeah,
learn. What
yeah.
is it that they say? The only difference between, oh, that's not the way it starts, but the idea is that, yeah, like, yeah, the only difference between a successful business person and an unsuccessful business person is that the successful person didn't give up. They just kept going.
Mhm.
Like, you just keep trying. They keep falling
Yeah,
on their faces,
and you pick it
but
back
you
up,
try again.
and you
Yeah.
get to someone else's wallet. and then, and then you go from there, right? So eventually, the lesson here is you will fall into another wallet that does not necessarily come out your pocket, but it's it's but it's all of the continuous, push and growth and belief in yourself. And also, I like to ask people about, what is your financial joy? Because I feel like a lot through your experiences, you've had a lot of joy that has come on the other side of it. So, what
Mhm.
does that mean to you?
Well, wait, when you say financial joy, do you mean like what do I spend on that gives me
Yeah,
joy?
it could be anything. Like when you hear that, what do you think about?
When I hear the words financial joy, what do I think about?
Mhm.
Um, okay, now I'm thinking about it because I've thought about it before, but okay, now thinking about it. Um, I mean, there is, okay, I can say this. Going out to a restaurant and not worrying whether I have enough money to cover it. Do you know, like, being able to
Mhm.
hand over my card for stuff and know that there's money in the bank to cover this? That is financial joy to me. It's not having to think about money or
Mhm.
worry, I should say, because you should always think about it, but not have to worry about it or stress about it.
Yeah.
Um, I also am really enjoying, because I'm doing a lot of travel. I'm on the road a lot. I'm trying to birth a big idea that could be beneficial to the world, but I'm clear that it can't be beneficial to the world if I'm a mess. So I'm really enjoying spending money on my own self-care. And I am like, I am not going to let anybody tell me that I should not be doing that. So if I want to take myself out to a restaurant, I'm taking myself out to a restaurant. If I want to have a massage, I'm going to have a massage. Do you know, like, if I want to sign up
Mhm.
for um, the local gym, I'm going to sign up for the local gym. And I see that as necessary money that gives me joy. So that's completely joyful to me.
I love it. I love it. And I feel like we need to pour more into ourselves as much as possible. And yeah, not be worried about what that looks like, whether it's to other people or, oh, why you spend so much money on that. Like I know I spend a lot of money on experiences and running and things I like to do, activities, right? Like we all have our thing that we do, but in a sense, to your point, it brings us joy, it keeps us happy, it brings us, health, whatever it does for you. So that trade-off is just, it's priceless, right? So all the things that it
Priceless.
helps you, as even as a creative, you pour into all the things when you have that time to step away, to think, to get clarity.
Yes.
And you can just be still in those moments, but
Yes.
your brain is now let go, and now you can just kind of focus on, oh, and then there's that big idea, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's
Exactly.
a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
Mhm.
before we hop off, I want to turn back over to something that you said earlier when you were talking about the transatlantic slave trade, and kind of talk more about it through the lens of wealth, right? So we lost, a lot through that transatlantic slave trade, not just people, but, potential families and all this legacy that we, could and should have had for all the various reasons, right? How do you feel like that has affected, particularly Black culture and wealth building today?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I've been thinking a lot about value, and I've been thinking about the value that is put on Black lives. And I would say, I think people could easily agree to this. I mean, maybe it's arguable, but I think there's a low value on Black lives. in the world at large. And I think that that is something that we have inherited. And there's a way that we also put a low value on ourselves to some extent. Um, so when I think about the wealth that was made during the journey, the wealth that didn't come our way, I feel like there's a way that we, on a really subconscious level, believe that we don't deserve that wealth, that we are not valuable, like we are not we're not deserving of value. So it doesn't surprise me that so many of us are struggling around money. Of course, like if we don't value ourselves, and that's not like, oh, you should value yourself. It's a cultural world perspective that Black lives are just not worth as much as other lives, that we are not valuable. So there's no way that we can't internalize that on a deeply unconscious level. I mean, so many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So many of us are sometimes making choices that, keep us um, in certain situations. Sometimes it's no fault of our own. It's what's coming at us. But all of this, I think, leads to a sensibility that we're just not valued.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's like when I was thinking about that earlier today and just kind of unpacking that question, right? You think about the breakdown of the family, right? Imagine if it was our choice to go to America, right? As opposed to being forced there. And now you have these families that are traveling together. You have this non brokenness that has happened because none of the things in history ever happened. It's like sometimes I oddly kind of think about that, every now and then where I'm like, what if we had just been left
Mm,
alone?
mm,
Like what if we had just been left to build and use the land in all the way that it was supposed to?
yeah.
And then we were able to just take these trips as families and visit other cultures or whatever that would have looked like had things not happened. I kind of sometimes kind of think about that and even what that would have done from a wealth perspective. So I'm
Yeah.
always just kind of curious, especially with everything that you're doing. And how do you think if we now start, because I feel like we're also getting to a place just as a culture where we're really starting to intentionally preserve our history for obviously all the reasons that, especially in this particular moment, are going on. But how do you think the preserving of our history, especially in the context of what you're doing and what you're creating, will help us, think differently about how we value our own lives and then also how we value our history?
I think it makes all the difference in the world. Maybe
Yeah.
it doesn't make the only difference, but I think it makes a huge difference. Um, when I think about what I've learned through this journey. So again, my work is around helping to tell stories about the documentation of the diving for and documentation of slave shipwrecks. And when I started this work, I have to say, like I wasn't really thinking about my own personal connection to the ships. I was thinking more broadly, like this is just information that needs to live in the world. Like we need a larger understanding of history. The historical record needs to be expanded, and this is a way to do that. And I thought collectively, if we know our history more, we can only shine more. Because if you don't know where you came from, how do you know where you're going? Like that's a pretty common statement. So that was my original focus when I started this work. But as I got more and more into it, I realized, oh, this is also personal. This isn't just about a collective story. This is also about my own relationship to history and how am I looking back and how am I understanding history? And I realized that I was afraid to look back and engage with the history because I felt like it was just too painful and too traumatic. So there's a whole part of history that I just wasn't that interested in. And I mean, I read the books growing up. I knew the names of the folks. I did the stuff, but I was like, it's too much, especially as an adult with new entertainment that's coming out. I'm just like, it's too much for me. I can't do it. So I wasn't looking back. And I think also that when we were asked to look back, or where there were opportunities to look back, all of the stories, all of the history, it centers inside of trauma and tragedy and pain. Like it just sits there, like it sits on the nerve. So it's just like, oh, ouch, ooh, pain. But what I found when I finally made this decision to look, when I finally got the courage to look, and I only got the courage because of all the people that I'm diving with, that I'm talking to, that I'm meeting with, who have done this work, I finally look back and I find out that there are incredible stories of accomplishments, stories to really be proud of. And I found this in my own family. So I'll just tell you really briefly, um, the furthest ancestor that I can trace back in my family is my great great grandfather. So his name is Jack, and Jack was born enslaved in North Carolina in 1837. And I always, like, we knew who Jack was. We had a picture of him on my mother's wall, but I was not curious about him at all. Didn't want to know. I'm just like, this man born enslaved, like it's too much. I don't want to know more. But because I started to do this work, and because I got the courage to look back, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see how far back I can go in my family. I'm like, what if we could trace back to a ship as well? I couldn't trace back to a ship, and I couldn't trace back further than Jack. But I traced Jack's life to an extent that none of my family knew. And I found out that this man was incredible. Like, and this man built wealth. Like, he was an enslaved person, but before he died, he managed to buy over 175 acres of land in North Carolina. Like 175 acres of land. So now I'm like, you know what? Maybe I get some of my real estate interests. Maybe that really came from Jack. Maybe that was a quality that I pulled, like it might have skipped some generations and it came to me, but it didn't just skip generations, because my grandfather, who was born, well, he grew up in the Great Depression. He managed also to buy 100 acres of land. So you got this Black wealth that's being built, that my family, because most of my family, they don't know that much about great great grandpa Jack. They know a little bit about grandpa, because grandpa left some of the land to his children, who then left it to their children. But the children are selling that land left and right. Like, they're not holding on to it. So, like, I don't know that they truly appreciate who he was and what he accomplished, and how that is something to take notes from. Like, that is something to be completely proud of, to like laud as an accomplishment. And I feel like these stories are the stories of our ancestors. It's not just the stories of pain and tragedy and trauma. I know that I'm not the only family whose ancestors bought land, or whose ancestors did something that generated wealth. Now, they might not have been able to keep that wealth because there was some insidious stuff happening, like we know the stories,
Yeah.
but they did it. So this idea that we don't know money, that we can't create wealth or a way out of no way, is not true. So I think, like, the more that we know this history, the more that we know these stories, the more we find pride in the past, and the more it gives us an opportunity to put our shoulders back and to be like, you know what? If they could do that and do that so well, I can do it too.
Oh yeah, I almost want to just throw in some Kendrick real quick, just squabble. I feel like that was a good segue. And I know we're almost at time, but I loved what you just said because I do feel like if more of us really leaned into our stories and our own family history and the appreciation of like what was or what could have been passed down, we would have more of an appreciation for everything that you just said, right? And in
And for
making sure
who
that
we
we're
are.
keeping that, yeah, and
Well,
for who we
we
are, right? What we
'cause we
were,
got a
what we
lot
were
of
able to
shame.
do.
We have a lot of shame
Mm-hmm.
around the past. We think there's something to be shameful of. And so
Mm-hmm.
that shame like lives inside of us too. And that impacts the way that we think of ourselves as valuable, the way that we think of our ancestors as valuable. But if we change that and we see ourselves as treasures, like I think that changes the mentality and it changes the behavior. And then that changes everything.
I could not agree more. And I feel like I have like 5 million other questions, but I know we're at time. So we are definitely doing a part two. I feel like there's so much to talk about in there, but I'll leave with like one quick question. As we, you kind of leaned into a little bit of what how we could change, how we could value ourselves. What is something that you would say to younger people as they're getting more in touch with their roots? And I feel like this generation seems to be really trying to connect with their history and the positive side of who we are and that becoming and that embracing and all of our beauty and skin tone and hair and all of the things. And as people even start to learn about you and your story and what you're building, what are things that they can look into their own history to find out and navigate it similar to what you did?
I think that there are so many stories that exist in our elders, and our elders are dying away, especially our elders that are or have memories of like the early 1900s and even the late 1800s. Like we are losing them. I mean, they're getting older and they're passing on to their next experience. So I think it's amazing and important to actually ask the people that we know, to ask our parents, if our grandparents are still here, to tell us the stories of the past, to start recording those stories, to start listening to those stories, to start sharing those stories. I remember one thing that one of the archaeologists that I interviewed said to me. This has stuck with me for a long time. She's a terrestrial archaeologist, the co-founder of the Society of Black Archaeologists. Um, and we were talking, and she was like, Tara, I am, how did she say it? She said, and I might get it a little wrong here, but it was something to the
We
extent,
won't. We won't know.
yeah, it was something like, not that she's not interested. This is what I'm like, I might be characterizing her a little incorrectly here, but let's just go with it for the moment. She was like, I'm not interested in the ways they died. I'm interested in the ways they lived. That is my work as an archaeologist. I am digging in the dirt to find the stories of how they lived, how they laughed, how they loved. Like those are the stories that we've got to uplift and share with each other. So if there's a little bit of advice that I would offer to anyone listening, especially anybody young, like find the stories of your grandparents, of your great grandparents. Find out how they lived, how they loved, how they laughed. That's where the juice is. That's where the joy is. And that's where we can look back and be proud of who we are and where we come from.
Amen to all of that and then some. And Tara, thank you so much for coming on, for dropping your story and sharing that with us, and especially all of your thoughts around wealth and what could and should have been in all the different ways. So I'm super excited for everyone to kind of take a listen, learn more about you, dive into more of what you're doing, and make sure they also read more and purchase your book. And where can they find that if someone's looking for it?
Yeah. So the name of the book is Written in the Waters, a memoir of history, home, and belonging. And it's in bookstores all over the country. It's on Amazon. It's easy to order. It tells the story of some of the ships that we have dived for. It tells the stories of some of the divers. It tells some stories of history of the transatlantic slave trade, perhaps some little known history. But it also tells my story and how I was transformed as a result of this journey. So I invite you to pick it up and take a read.
Awesome. And I'll definitely be getting my copy. I'm excited to dive right in. So thank you for
I
coming
can't
up.
help but say stuff like that with it.
I know. I hope everyone caught that. I try. I do what I can when I can. Hopefully this is, we'll just come back.
Okay.
Everyone, well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Equity Blueprint Podcast. Super excited to have you all join us today, and make sure you catch up on other episodes and stay tuned for what's next. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you share and subscribe. Tell a friend to check it out as well. See you again soon.